from the perspective of really starting not only internationally, but coming into the US market, but domestically as well. That's Freddie Mercury. We're the champions. That's where I was going with that. You've conquered your home market. So that kind of brings it up, like if you're looking for the next state, the next country, the next area, the next region that you're going into, have you conquered your home market? And if your answer is no, why have you not conquered the market that you're in with, the place where you're from, the people that love you, all of the resources at your bet. You probably got kids that can go do tastings for you in stores, and you've got people that can come help label and package up product when you're not there. And so, I really always ask people first and foremost, if you haven't won your home market, why have you not won your home market? And what can we do, as your distributor partner? Maybe you're self-distributing in your home market. Maybe it's time to bring on a partner there, or it's time to bring on a partner regionally, to see what more you can do in that space. Once you've gotten to that point and you decide to scale up, so you're going to come into the United States, you're going to go from one state into 2 states or 5 states. Are you going to have scale issues? What's going to be the first thing that happens? We have this happen not only with small brands, but actually with quite large brands. We had a brand recently that we love. We're working really hard, really aggressively to grow. Their bottles, because we've moved from obviously coming with the United States 700s into 750s, their bottles come 20,000 at a time, but the closures come from a different company, 12,000 at a time. So when it came time to do that second bottling, they ran out of closures. We were out of product for 60 days. That's a horrible position to be in. And this is a big company that's well-resourced, and certainly these are people that can add numbers together and should have probably predicted that that was going to happen. But it's crazy. That happens on a very small scale, and it was insane earlier this year when we had it happen on a very large scale. Same thing, sometimes will happen with things as simple as labels. But also in terms of your distillery, if all of a sudden something really takes off, where's the bottleneck now? Because that's going to be exacerbated. So if that's in your washbacks because you're making whiskey, or if that's in terms of getting a seasonal botanical because you're making gin. If you really want to grow, let's make sure that we're not looking 1 year out. We're probably looking 10 years out, 5 years out. We're kind of backing into that plan. But identify the bottlenecks that you have as a small producer, because if your distributor is doing their job, those bottlenecks are really going to be exacerbated. And that really feeds into support and staff. We had another distiller that we worked with who was in one market, and he decided that he then wanted to go simultaneously into Miami, Chicago, LA, San Francisco, and New York City. That sounds great. I mean, that seems like a really good plan. Coming from your home market seems like a great idea. And I said, how many, employees do you have? And he said, well, none. So you're the distiller, you're putting on the labels, you're bottling and boxing. I said, so when you're off kicking off Chicago, and the next week you're off kicking off New York, and your home market desperately needs a pallet of product, who's going to make sure, that those macerations are being done? Who's packing up? And he was like, I literally never thought of that. And then 2, export market expectations. So obviously, just knowing we're not planning 1 year out. We're not necessarily talking about what you did in your home market and saying, all right, the population of my home market is 50,000. The population of Chicago is 5 million. Let's just multiply it out, and that's how many cases I'm going to need, or that's how many bottles I'm going to need. It's really looking at target accounts. It's looking at overall consumption, but also knowing that there are going to be 30 other people probably approaching that same space simultaneously with other distributors, with other importers, and so really knowing what kind of the piece of the pie and the unique, the USPs that you're bringing to the table are. Why the US market? I mean, some of us are talking US, some of us are talking just moving on to other states. It's an exciting place. It's a diverse place. We've got people coming from all over the world that want to bring really, really exciting products in. But what I do find is that we've got folks that somebody might say, we're from the distillery closest to the Cliffs of Moher, and we use this really cool botanical to make this gin, and it's like, that's cool. I also have 20 other Irish gins probably, floating around my office right now. So that's not necessarily unique enough, so then it's got to be about resources. It's got about, it's got to be about the whole package that you're bringing to the table. I barely touched it that time. So yeah, you get over to the US, you guys know this, but honestly, some people don't. The US bottle is a 750. For now, maybe we're all going to go to 700s. We have no idea what could change. I know there was some stuff in the news last week just about that. But then making sure that you know that you're going to have to purchase a minimum amount of those bottles. Being prepared when you're talking to your import partners, knowing the difference between if I come pick up, like we're a huge wine importer. So if you're a spirits company from France, I can probably pick up stuff DI from you and get it here less expensively than landing it in the United States and bringing things over. So being prepared to say, oh, we've got this discounted rate if you want to pick it right up from us, as opposed to picking it up landed in New Jersey. Lots of different types of import partners. Harry and I and the team at Park Street work together on a lot of things. It's extremely hard just being like one or two people with a new brand coming to the United States without somebody to kind of hold your hand and help you navigate through all of the laws. You know, the States is one big country, but we're 50 completely different markets. We've got the 3-tiered system in some states. We've got a 4-tiered system. You've got control states to navigate. You've got things that are totally legal in mob-run Chicago that would never work here in New York, where everything's really buttoned down. But those things shouldn't be surprises. There's Google, the pocket computer, that little tiny phone. You can Google most of the information that like I would probably help you with. But it's shocking to me sometimes that people don't just really know the basics. So I mean, you want to come to the table with your potential import or distributor partners as well prepared as you possibly can be, and be able to say, I've looked at these markets. I know the difference between the state taxes. I know the difference between if something's under 20% alcohol, there's probably a tax break as opposed to something that's 20 to 40, and something over 40 might have a different tax structure. So just kind of knowing those things for the market that you're approaching. And again, you know, all those online resources, I have a document that I share with people all the time where I just kind of keep a living document of all of the different state laws, the national laws, all the different tax structures. In there, probably one of the biggest points here is national pricing is really global pricing. If somebody's going to look up, you work with gin in Scotland, and it's beautiful. Whatever your pricing is there, when somebody Googles it and sees it on Master of Malt and it's 49 pounds, they're going to quickly go through and say the exchange rate today is 1.26. That means that this costs this much in US dollars. That actually needs to be your shelf price. Once you've established a price, we kind of globally need to be on the same page with that. It's not about coming here and going, no, now I want it to be $75, or no, now it's suddenly $40, because you'll really cause a disruption. So making sure that you know, like, everybody's just going to Google everything. They're going to beat me up. They're going to beat our retailers up. You know, we're going to have bartenders beating up on us, everybody, to keep that pricing really consistent because you put that expectation out there. So that's really important. Well, there we go. How much support are your brands going to need? I made that little bag. I put the hustle sign on it. I want it to be reality. It's hard to find a picture of somebody lugging a bag. So filling out your dance card, how much support are you going to need? So like you're going to need a national structure, a regional structure, a local structure. You've got choices. You know what David and Jason and I do, I mean, is very different. We've all probably worked through all different tiers, but is it something where you can be self-supportive in one market, but you really need a regional partner in another market? You know, it's just kind of determining. I'd really recommend people approaching this state by state. I don't think it makes a lot of sense for most people to say, we're going to come into all 50 states, or we're going to come into the top 10 markets. You need a little time to get your feet under you. You probably need a year, 18 months, 24 months in a large market to make the mistakes, have the successes, and really develop that blueprint and say, here's all the things I'm coming to you with. Let's go from New York into Miami or whatever it is. Okay, I'll be fast. Let's go back for 2 seconds. When you first send out that very first email and you're trying to gauge somebody's attention, I'm always going to read through things and I'm always going to respond to people. Probably a lot of the time it's going to be, I really don't have time to look at this right now, but this seems really interesting. If I get an email that says, this is a high quality product, here's all the production methods, I'm going to send you a bottle. You already know how to get a bottle of alcohol onto my desk, but also talk about it, bring it up. This is the kind of support, the planning, the pricing, this is the outcome we expect. I would say, honestly, intro your product that way. It shows so much thought. It shows that you've really started working through this. That's going to be the thing that causes me to have a conversation with you. So I think that's extremely important. Yeah, be prepared to ship samples. That's crazy to me that people are like, we can't get a sample to you. If I can't taste it and put my hands on the label and touch the packaging, we're not going to move any farther. The quality has to be there first and foremost. And so to me, that's all about, you know, knowing that you're going to need to be patient, but also package yourself correctly. You're the resource. You're that home base. You know, get that bottle over, send me a good email. We'll be in good shape.